Welcome to Messages from Light with Nikki Avery. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Nikki with Messages from Light. And today I want to talk about lighting your shadow. And what I mean by that is we all have that shadow side. We all have a dark side. We all have a ego, a negative side of our inner consciousness. And we call it by a lot of different names. It depends on how you personally look at it. But, you know, if you're from a more traditional standpoint, this would be like your personal demon. So, you know, the old analogy of an angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other. That's what we're kind of talking about. We're going to talk about that demon. We're going to talk about that inner shadow. And we're going to talk about how that shadow affects you, how we're not dealing with that shadow in everyday life, and some steps on how we can kind of fix that. Because bottom line, when it comes to a spiritual path and it comes to living a spiritual path and trying to find enlightenment and reach stages of awakening, everything that you are doing should be about your internal work. Because the reality is we have to change inside, and we have to change the way that we're thinking and the way that we're perceiving things and the way that we're perceiving ourselves before we can fix anything externally. We have to make sure that our own light is shining before we can start working with the light in the world and helping other people shine their light. So when we talk about the shadow self, on an everyday basis, most of us are not facing our shadow self. These are the aspects of yourself that you don't necessarily like. It's the parts of yourself that you don't talk about, you don't tell people about, you kind of, if it comes up in your mind, you just kind of throw it off. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're thinking about this side of yourself or not, it is still acting out in your everyday life. It is still playing out in your world. You are still creating with this shadow self. So what we have to learn to do is we have to learn to train our shadow self, and we have to learn to train our minds so that our shadow works with us or works for us rather than working against us. Now, the shadow side, or the shadow, is all of your negative emotions. These are all your fears, your resentments, your jealousies, your anger. These are all of these things, manipulation. It's your need for control. That's what we're dealing with. So when we look at these things, we know that most of the time, you know, we kind of shut them away. But that's not going to fix them. The only way that we fix them is by acknowledging these things within ourselves and then working towards the root of where they came from so that we can heal that experience and therefore create healing in our thought processes and healing in that shadow self, to where that particular aspect of our personality is no longer taking over what is good for us in our life. Because what we see is people allowing fear to keep them in a negative place, allowing their fear of stepping forward and their fear of whatever it may be, fear of commitment keeping you in loneliness, fear of loss of control keeping you from truly being in control of your life. All of these things that we're so scared of are always affecting us as long as we have the fear of them. So when we talk about doing the internal work, and we talk about working with your shadow, and we talk about facing your shadow, what we're talking about is learning to love that side of yourself, learning to face that side of yourself, accept that side of yourself, so that you can then find ways to make that side, to make that shadow work with you. For me personally, I grew up in a very negative atmosphere. So I had a lot of anger, and anger was a huge part of my shadow self. And until I was willing to see that anger within myself and see the damage that it was causing to other people, I had no control over it. Now, mind you, when I say we're working on our shadow, it doesn't mean that we're ever going to get complete control. It's a shadow for a reason. These are negative aspects of the human race. These are part of being human. We're always going to have some ego. We're always going to have these parts of ourselves. But we can learn to control them. We can learn to stop allowing them to take over and have a negative effect in our life. So when we look at working with our shadow, I want to give everybody a little bit of a challenge. Because when I first started learning about this, it was early in my spiritual growth. And I had a little easier time because I wasn't raised in a traditional belief system. So I never saw my negative aspects as evil. And I say that with quotations because I think that all things are necessary. So I don't necessarily see evil. I see a negative aspect of life or a negative aspect of the human experience. I don't consider it as evil, because to consider it as evil is to inherently see yourself as evil. And we know that we are inherently divine. We are inherently divine beings who are having a human experience. That human experience comes with all of these shadow emotions, all of these negative emotions, because we live in a world that is very fear-based. So we have to get to the bottom of this, and the bottom line is that most of these negative emotions, they boil down to fear. In one way or another, they boil down to fear. And when we're doing the internal work, we're digging deep and we're going back and we're finding the root of that fear. And then we're fixing it. So, my challenge for you guys, and this might sound silly, but I promise it works. My challenge is, I want everybody to go and stand in front of your mirror. I want you to set a 3-minute timer. And I want you to look directly into your own eyes for that entire 3 minutes. I want you to do it with your heart open. I want you to do it without pushing away anything that comes up. Because you know that old saying about at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror? That's what we're talking about here. We are our own worst critics. So I want you to go and stand in front of that mirror for 3 minutes. What this does is it allows you to connect both your light and your shadow, because one is reflecting at the other. So I want you to stare into your own eyes for 3 minutes. And I want you to see all of those aspects of yourself that you typically shy away from. And then I want you to look in your own eyes as you do this. Because what you're going to realize and what you're going to see is you're going to see fear and you're going to see pain. Because at the base of these shadow emotions, that's what you're dealing with. A pain that then instilled fear. That's what we're dealing with. When we talk about healing, we talk about doing the inner work. This is the hard stuff, guys. And we talked about, in 2018, if you watch the video about 2018, Choices and Perceptions, we talked about this being a huge year. We talked about this being the year where you are spiritually being expected to step forward. And that's what this is about. This is about taking that step forward. It's about taking control. And it's about looking at yourself from a true light. Because when we do that, we can then see how to shine our light brighter. We can see where we need work, and we can see where we've made progress. Facing our shadow isn't about feeling negative about ourselves. Please understand that. It's not about feeling negative about ourselves. Facing our shadow is about accepting ourselves. And that's a key. Accepting ourselves. Accepting all parts of ourselves. Because when we can accept all of ourselves, then we can accept other people. So facing that shadow is so important. 2018 is the year for it, guys. It's time to step up. And I wanted to get this message out today because we're coming up to the new moon. The new moon is happening. And the new moon is all about new beginnings. It's all about making a fresh start. So this is the perfect energy to kind of help you guys get that jump start of dealing with your shadow self. Now, when you get done with your 3 minutes in the mirror, understand there's going to be some of you that are going to be able to do this, and you're not going to have a lot that really comes up because you're just not ready to be there yet. That's okay. Some of you are going to look in this mirror and you're going to cry. You're going to cry because you're going to feel your own pain, and that's okay too. Some of you are not going to be able to stare at the mirror for 3 minutes. And if you can't look at yourself for 3 minutes, then you really need to look at why. Why is that? And this isn't about anybody else, guys. This is about you. This is about your work. This is about your growth. This is about you cleaning out all of the debris that doesn't belong and getting everything out of the way so that you could jump forward spiritually. This is about you reaching your goal. It's not easy. It's not fun. But it's a huge part of what we're here to do. And if you're not willing to face yourself, and you're not willing to look at your own flaws and your own shadow, then how can you speak to anyone else's? We have to heal ourselves first, guys. And it's time to dig deep. It's time to hit the hard stuff. Do this. Do this challenge. Do the 3 minutes in front of your mirror. Okay? And then go sit down and write. Write down the things that came up. Write down what you feel about it. Writing is one of the best ways to purge. So when you figure out some of these things, and you have some of these things coming up, and you're recognizing them, because it's not just while you're in the mirror. Once you're aware that that shadow exists and what its purpose is, then you can recognize those shadow actions in your everyday life. Start recognizing those actions, and when you see them, write them down. Why? Because it puts a conscious awareness in your mind. It's like everything I keep talking about, guys. Doing the spiritual journey, doing this work, trying to get yourself to a state of enlightenment and a state of awakening, or going through the phases of awakening, because as I've said, awakening is a process. We're constantly doing it. If we were fully awakened, what would be the point of being here? We are constantly on this journey. Doing the work is about digging it all out, putting it all in front of you, and then saying, okay, guys, universe, divine, guides, angels, whoever you call on. These are the things that I'm struggling with. These are the things inside of myself that I don't feel like I can love the way that they are. Or that I don't feel like I can accept the way that they are. Ask for help. They'll give it. They will give it. And then take the time to do the work, guys. Sit down and write down what these fears are. Sit down and write down what these hurts are. Sit down and write until you figure out where this experience comes from. Purge. Deal with it. Pull it all out. And let it go. This is the time for new beginnings. This is the time to sweep away all of that old mess. So get out your brooms and get ready. Because we can do a lot of good right now if we're willing to look past the things that we like. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of this and something that you needed. I hope that you take me up on my challenge. And if you do, send me a message, write a comment. Let me know how it goes for you. Let me know how that 3-minute challenge works. Because I know for me, it's always a very enlightening experience. You guys, make sure you check out the website. It's awakenlight.com. Keep an eye on the page. There's new stuff coming out all the time. And make sure that you're subscribing. Make sure that you're clicking the bell and you're getting all of your notifications so you know when we're putting new things out. I can't wait to hear from you guys. I can't wait to see what you're doing to light your shadow. Until next time, I love you guys. Bye.